Hello, everyone. I'm Robyn Grable, the founder of Talents Ascend and the Ascend Collective, and your host for Ascending Beyond Barriers. Welcome. Ascending Beyond Barriers is an inspiring podcast dedicated to showcasing the remarkable journeys of small business founders who have faced and overcome significant challenges on their path to success. Each episode delves into the personal stories of entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds, highlighting their unique experiences, struggles, and triumphs. Today we welcome Nikki James Zellner. She is a brand advisor, creative strategist, speaker, and author of the upcoming book, The Watchdog Way. With over 15 years of experience in marketing and storytelling, she's helped hundreds of brands find their voice while launching 15 lifestyle magazines. A fierce advocate for purpose-driven businesses and nonprofits, Nikki's passion for impact runs deep. From championing school safety policies to winning the 2022 Trailblazer of the Year award, she's proof that small steps create big change. A Navy spouse, mom, and soccer coach, Nikki is on a mission to help brands tell their most authentic stories. Well, go Navy. Got to say that first. I always have to. I know I'm supposed to be impartial running Talents Ascend, but I was in the Navy, so I have to always say go Navy. So, but thank you for that. Military spouses don't always get the thanks that they deserve or the recognition and the support. So truly appreciate you for your service in the uniform of choice, but what you did every day to support your service members. So cool. So, all right. So you got big things happening. Your brand strategist, kind of tell us about that. I want to say one thing, I had to write it down because it was so impactful for me from your website. Those with purpose deserve to be heard, which I love because we have such a purpose here at Talents Ascend and we're so small. It's like, how do we get heard? Like people need to hear what we're doing. So I love that you've got that front and center on your website, but just tell us about your journey, military spouse, into creating your own companies. And then we'll get to talking about that book because I want to talk about that too with 5 Grand Cherubs. It's so important to me what you're doing with the Watchdog Way. So tell us.
Well, I mean, it's a long journey. I'm in my mid 40s. So let's set the stage, right? I'm in my mid 40s. I started working, I think when I was 14, when I was legally allowed to do so.
Wow.
I wanted to start working. And the first jobs I had were in media. They were in small town newspapers.
Okay.
They were being the gopher for the advertising department and going, to different businesses and getting the changes that they wanted to make on their ads. Because at the time, email wasn't a big thing, right? You had to physically go out. This was early 90s, mid 90s,
yeah.
Right? And so I really started in small town communications, small town businesses. So mom and pop businesses are my jam, right?
Nice.
And in small towns, reputation is everything.
Yeah.
Who knows you and knows your life story and wants to support you and those kinds of things. And so I've really taken that mentality to the bigger places I've gone, right? Just because you move to a Baltimore or an Atlanta or a DC, doesn't mean that your approach should change all that much. It's all about who you know and who knows you, right? So connecting the dots between those things. And I have always found that the people I love connecting with most are the people with really interesting, multi-passionate backgrounds. They're not the person that does one thing their whole life. They are the person that wears many hats, stirs many pots, has many soapboxes.
Absolutely.
Those are my favorite people because those to me are the most dynamic.
Yeah.
They are just multifaceted. They're an onion with lots of layers. Not saying that every person isn't like that, but these that kind of put themselves out there, I really enjoy getting to know and enjoy kind of learning more about and supporting, through my businesses now. I will say that when I became a military spouse, I was 35. So I had already had a good portion of my career. I had already launched all those magazines. I had already taken the turn towards I think I want to exit corporate, right? And when I became a military spouse, that was a great time to do it. Was start my own business because I was becoming a new mom. I wasn't sure if we were going to pick up and move every 5 seconds, and I really wanted something that was very flexible for me and my family. And another thing to boot is I had gotten diagnosed with a chronic pain illness, and it really became a hurdle for me to try and be successful in the ways that I was previously successful. The early wake ups, the all day in chairs, the all day moving from here to there. So I was really looking to hone in on that which brought me joy. What I would want to do from my own home that would still allow me space to grow as a human, as a mom, as an artist, as a creative, doing creative pursuits. And I'm finally there. I feel like I've taken really important steps to get to that point. And it was painful, right? It was like you had to let go of things. You had to let go of things. And thankful for the military teaching me that sometimes those things that you had once might never arrive in your moving truck. So you gotta let go of things that aren't meant for you anymore, just like your household goods.
Well, we always you look up the definition of resilience, and you're going to get pictures of military spouses because that's just the way it is, right? Yeah, you're so true. But yeah, I mean, and a lot of people would say, "Wow, you're 35 and you chose to be a military spouse. That's honorable because." If you're 20 something, you may not know any better, like what's the military life all about. But
he had been in the military, right? So it wasn't that he was new and I was new. It was he'd been in there for 8 to 10 years. I had a career, I lived on the beach in Virginia Beach was where we met, and we were from the same hometown in Alabama. So it really just was divine, meeting of the minds.
Meant to be.
And so when I decided to go in business for myself, I really thought about, there are lots of things I can do, but what do I want to do?
Yes.
Right. And so a lot of times when you tell somebody you're in marketing, they're like, oh, let me ask you this question about Google. I'm like, I understand Google, but that's a specialist thing. So what I really do is help. I've really niched down to who my people are after having worked with, I think I'm going on 7 years of business now.
Nice. Congratulations. So are we.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So I've really niched down to who my people are. So it used to just be a general business owner, right? A multi-passionate business owner. Today, it's really about those purpose-driven brands, those nonprofits that are running lean and have a really important mission to achieve. They are the multi-passionate solopreneur or business owner who is an author, speaker, coach, or consultant doing big things in a very specific space. And most of my people have a very distinct point of view, and their business is their intellectual property. It is all about who they are and what they do for people.
Right.
They don't sell widgets.
Right.
They are not SaaS people. Right. They're not like, you won't know me. I'm happy to sell this brand tomorrow for millions of dollars people. Although I have worked with founders of those on their founder branding. It's not the brand piece that I'm working on.
Yeah.
So my kinds of people are really change makers. They're small and mighty. They are used to doing things their way. They don't want to lose their own voice to a robot. They don't want to disappear into the noise of the digital ecosystem. And they're looking for, how do I say what I want to say with more chutzpah? How do I do it in a way that isn't trickery or, what's sustainable for me? And that's a big word that I use with people is sustainability. Because if you follow any number of gurus, they'll give you a system that will absolutely work, but that doesn't mean you can keep up with that system.
Right.
And as soon as business starts coming in from that system, you give up on that system and you're too busy to do things, right? So my framework is really more about what is the sustainability? What is that messaging that you're really wanting to get out there? And is it more important for you to reach 100 of the exact right people or 1,000 of the people that could care less? And I want to focus on those people that care about reaching the 100 right? Absolutely. That exact fit for them. And that's what we work towards.
Nice. Well, you're speaking my language, because it's certainly, who we are from a purpose-driven perspective, and being different. Our whole model is skills-based, no resume, no application first. It's so different from all the other noise that's out there.
Yeah.
And how do you tell that story? How do you get people to hear you when they're so bombarded with the corporate noise that's out there? And I think that's the same way for other nonprofits or small businesses, because they're trying to do something different and better and make an impact, make a difference. But how do they get heard? So
I would say come back to that feeling, right? Stop trying to make people think and instead start trying to make people feel. Yeah. And if your messages make people feel, you will be ahead of the game.
Yeah. Well, we've recently been working on our website and our messaging and stuff. So hopefully we're getting there. It's been a long journey, but we certainly one I'm grateful for Neela and our team to just really be hanging in there with me. So because what we do really is making a difference. It truly is. So what's your best advice? You've got somebody that you're working with is just maybe starting their business. There's always a great question about how you name your business.
Name it yourself.
Yeah.
Name it after you, especially if this is a business that you don't ever plan on selling.
Okay.
Right? If this is a business based on you and your work, unless you come up with a name that really will and this is a good example, my own business, right? The name of my business, LLC, is Where Content Connects. I always knew that everything I did was going to be about content. And that business could still work, but what I realized is nobody searches for Where Content Connects. Everybody searches for my name. And so even though I'm in a bunch of different places, the key terms that they put alongside of it really help. So they might search Nikki James Zellner, brand advisor, and I'm going to pop up for LinkedIn. If they search Nikki James Zellner carbon monoxide, I'm going to search up, I'm going to show as my passion project, right? So and I'm going to show up on Nora O'Donnell on CBS Evening News, right? So it's going to be, it's the keywords, and it's how people search for you. But in reality, somebody doesn't say, let's say you're talking on LinkedIn, you're at a networking event, you're talking to somebody, and two people are talking about you. They don't say, you should reach out to Talents Ascend. They might say, you should reach out to Robyn. Talents Ascend is great. It's a great bubble for you. Yeah. It will serve its purpose from a logo standpoint, from a business name standpoint. But what I really tell people to remember is people want to refer to you and the problem you solve. And so unless you're establishing a brand that you really don't want to be the forefront of, that you really want to be like, this is something I plan on selling, this is a widget, is there any of these things? I always tell people, if you want to create a brand around you, then the brand name has to be you.
Yeah.
We'll end up switching it.
Yeah. It does make a lot of sense. Oh, but I've heard the flip side though, too, is if you name your company after you, and somewhere down the road, like, I plan to live for another, 50 or 60 years.
Yeah.
God willing. But maybe one of my grand cherubs don't want to take over the business, and they don't want my named business. Right. So there's people that say, don't name it for that reason, and who knows what it is. But I want to go back to the point though, is so yes, you're right. You're at a networking event and somebody will say, oh, you've got to talk to Robyn. They don't say, oh, look up Talents Ascend. Sometimes they do, but more often it is just, hey, go talk to Robyn. So do you recommend then I have robyngrable.com, and on that, it talks about who I am, but it also talks about the business?
Yeah, so you can do that. So a great way to do that is, I always tell everybody, get your website name from the second you know how to get a GoDaddy registration.
Right.
Everybody should have ownership of their own website name, period.
What's funny is I have all 5 of my grand cherubs. We've already, registered their
do that
name.
in Gmail, do that, in all of the places, right?
Yeah.
You want to secure that, because if you have a really popular name, somewhere down the line, you're going to be paying big bucks to get that.
Yeah, that's true.
I can't tell you what the future's going to bring, if the internet will stay in its existing form 10 years from now. Right. But what I will say, to that question, what if one of your grand cherubs wants to take over this business in 20 years?
Yeah.
I have a feeling a lot will have changed in 20 years.
Yes, for sure.
Right? And maybe the business name will also be morphing. Maybe a lot of people start out as one business name and then they drop pieces of it and turn to another business name. So business names for me they're there for legal purposes more than they're there for referral purposes. Unless you're something like an apple, go buy an apple, right? Unless it becomes a proper noun,
right?
It's, people,
Google,
those kinds of things. It's not really, when it's a person who's a change maker, who's purpose driven, and they want to do things based on their passions, go the directions they want to go. My advice to them would be to stick with their name.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, we were talking off camera too, that, I've got a couple of books that I will eventually write, which have a little bit to do with Talents Ascend, but not directly connected. So there's a different part of me that needs to be on my website. So, all right, I've made myself some homework. I got to work on that tonight. That's awesome. So, all right, so we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about your book, The Watchdog Way, right?
Yes.
Tell us about that, because what a great mission. You called it a passion project, but just really, I want to hear about it, because, carbon monoxide is a scary, scary thing. We travel a lot with our grand cherubs, and I always look for, we spend Airbnb, VRBO, whatever, but it bothers me so much how there aren't carbon monoxide detectors in these vacation homes that people are renting. Just drives me crazy. So we actually bring portable ones with us.
I think everybody should do that, regardless of where you're traveling to or what you're traveling in. Right. Yeah. So regardless of if you're in an RV, you're staying at a campground, you're staying at an Airbnb, a hotel, a 5-star resort in Costa Rica. When we started our call, the New York Times just came out and said that the Yankees pitcher, or the former Yankees player's son, the family had gotten sick while on family vacation. He was 14 years old. They finally announced that it was carbon monoxide poisoning from their hotel room. Their hotel room was next to a mechanical room, and it came through the walls, right? That's what carbon monoxide does. It can travel through walls. They just found out that their 14-year-old son, that's what he passed away from. And the whole family had gotten sick, right? They thought it was a mystery illness. In reality, it was a poisonous gas that was poisoning them. This is not, we hear a lot about it happening in other countries. It has really happened a lot in the United States as well, and has happened for a very long time. So my tie with carbon monoxide, for the record, I did not go to school for HVAC training. I did not go to school for safety sciences, any of those things. I was just a military spouse and mom who was hanging out at my house one day, and I get a text message from my daycare in the middle of the workday that said, "Come pick up your kids. There's been a gas leak." That's how my relationship with carbon monoxide started.
Wow.
At the time, we didn't know it was carbon monoxide, right? I get there, the daycare's closed. There's firemen, police trucks, ambulances everywhere. And there's 100 kids and staff. There's 80 kids between ages 6 weeks and 6 years old in a building next door to the daycare, along with all of their frantic parents, along with all the EMS people. And all these kids are getting checked out. And it turns out there was a faulty latch on the furnace, and it had poisoned the entire school for over 6 hours. There was no carbon monoxide detection required in the building because it was grandfathered in to Virginia Building Code. Basically, any building after 2015 that was being built after 2015 was required to have one.
Yeah.
Any building built prior to 2015, regardless of if it had scary gas producing equipment, was not required to have it. And in my instance, my two children, ages 4 and 3 at the time, were poisoned. And having a media background, I approach chaos a little differently. I approach crime scenes a little differently than probably most people. And so I started taking notes, and I started asking questions before the legal team shut them down. And then, of course, I'm on the phone with the newspaper of like, why is this a thing? And what I realized is I could sit there and complain about what had happened, or I could start with how did it happen? Yeah. How was it allowed to happen? And start having conversations. This was at the time of COVID. Wow. And so I didn't really have anything else to do during COVID because my business people weren't really working. They didn't really need my services during COVID. And so I just decided to turn into a subject matter expert on carbon monoxide. I became the only person in the United States tracking campus-based carbon monoxide incidents in daycares, K through 12, and college campuses. And I lobbied for state law change in Virginia and won in 1 year. I now do that on a national level for things like the NFPA and building codes, because we think that we're safe when we go into these properties that are not our homes. Yeah, whether that's a library, a grocery store, whatever. Every single building has different code. And one thing I discovered during my tracking of the incidents is that most building code is tied to fixed appliances, meaning you have a gas water heater, you have a gas dryer, the appliance is installed in your home or in your building. But what I found during tracking was that 40% of incidents where poisonings took place and medical emergencies occurred due to portable devices. Really? Things like propane-powered grills, propane-powered floor buffers, idling vehicles too close to a property, running a generator outside of your home, but not far enough away from your home after a power outage, right? So it was all due to portable equipment, and building codes don't protect you from those. No. It's all user error. It's all, I put this in the wrong place, or I used something inside, or I left my electric car running in the garage. Oh my God. Or not my electric car, but my push button car running in the garage that's half hybrid, half gas. Yeah. And that's killing people. And so I fight every day. I get a little smarter every day in the space. I've had incredible mentors who help me understand the science of it so that I can break it down in layman's terms for moms like me, for business owners, for travelers, and really talk about what they should be getting to protect themselves, what questions they should be asking, how to feel more confident in having conversations about this scary subject. Yeah. Because it's happening all around us. And we're years away from having 100% detection rate.
Well, we just don't have it, though. This is a silent killer. You cannot see it is. And, you just can't see it at all. You can't smell it. You don't know it's there. Why aren't people more ready for this?
Well, a lot of people think that they're already protected, right? They assume that the fire alarm is the carbon monoxide alarm. It's not. They assume that building code also means carbon monoxide detection instead of just fire code and emergency code. It does not. And so every state has its own processes. Even every municipality has its own processes. Good grief. Let's say the state of Pennsylvania has one thing, but the city of Philadelphia could have something completely different. Right? Like, they are required to do what the state says, but they could go over and above. They can't do under, but they can do over and above. Wow. So let's say somebody moves from Philadelphia to a suburb and it doesn't have the same requirements, and they're thinking that it does. So the transient nature of people today means they're going into a lot of spaces with assumptions. Wow. Every state has its own building code. They don't all follow the same rule book. So some states require legislation, like Virginia, to change building code. Some states only adopt the code of the International Code Council and it might be 20 years behind the code that just came out.
Wow.
It is, I could go down this rabbit hole, but that's not why you invited me on.
Well,
just to say, based on where you live, know your code.
Yeah. But how else can people protect themselves? And we are getting close to timeout here. And but how else can, like I said, we travel with portable, carbon monoxide, but only when we have the babies with us. I was just
travel
in a hotel
all the
room
time, not just
Tuesday
when you have
night,
babies.
and I didn't have one. I'm like, now I'm thinking I should get one.
This is what I want in your car, in your portable detector. This is what I want you to have. I want you to have a digital screen on it. It's going to tell you any level of carbon monoxide above 0. I want it to tell you the level, regardless of when it's going to alert, because I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole with you. Just know that they don't alert immediately. They don't alert immediately. Standard alarms do not. The one you get at Home Depot, the one you get at Walmart does not alert the second it senses carbon monoxide. It waits. It waits until accumulation. And at that point, you're already impaired.
Yeah.
We're fighting this battle too, Robyn. Don't worry about it. We're fighting this battle on your behalf.
Yay. Well, I'm glad to have you on our side, Nikki. Wow.
But that's piece 1. Have a digital screen. Piece 2, have an audible alert. You need to be able to be woken up by the thing loudly. It needs to aggravate you. I don't care if it's running out of battery, right? Like the third thing it needs to have, if it doesn't have a 10-year lithium battery in it, a 10-year battery, not I'm replacing it once a year. If it doesn't have a 10-year battery, I want it to have a plug-in as well as the battery.
Okay.
Because when your power goes off, if you only have a plug-in, your detector will not alert.
Will not work. Wow.
And so many of the times the issue is coming because the power went out and something malfunctioned.
Wow. So does this device actually exist?
It exists. It exists.
Good.
You also, bonus points if you can get it to alert at a lower level. So alerting at 10 or 35 or 50 ppm, which is the accumulation level. You start feeling side effects. A healthy adult will start feeling side effects at 30 ppm. Wow. You'll have a headache. You'll feel your chest will feel tight. You'll feel a little nauseous or sleepy. It'll feel like you're coming down with a bug or you're dehydrated. Those are the first clues. And that's really hard to decipher, right? But if you have a little monitor with a digital screen on it, you can look and say, oh, look at that. I tried to bake a pizza and the carbon monoxide went up to 20. That tells you something's wrong with your stove.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. And I think the key point is people should not trust that where they're going or whatever vehicle they're riding in or whatever hotel they're staying in, they should not just blindly trust it's being handled.
That's correct.
It isn't. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And so the book really came out of this experience. The question I kept getting after this experience is, how did you create so much change in so little time? Like, how did you do that? And the book is called The Watchdog Way. How everyday people can take small steps to create big change in a world gone sideways. So it's not about carbon monoxide. That's the intro. It's about my experience with that. Yeah. But it really interviews everyday change makers and gives everyday people kind of a way to move forward. The biggest thing is shifting their mindset away from victim to advocate and curious person, right? Not this happened to me, but I uniquely understand this and I'm in a unique position to solve this thing that happened to me. So I ask people, instead of going out there and trying to get involved in something they don't understand or they think is cool or trendy to be involved with right now, take a look at your own lived experiences, whether that's you or somebody in your immediate family, that you have a unique perspective of understanding the struggles that you guys faced with that experience, whether that was unjust or whether that was traumatic or whatever. It could be safety lighting in your neighborhood and you fell down, any of those things. That's where I want people to start with change. Because if we can start solving those problems and give people those wins of feeling like, wow, I was really able to change something, it gives them more confidence to move into spaces where systemic change is needed. Yeah. So I don't want everybody to turn into an activist tomorrow. In reality, you'll probably go that direction the more you get involved in solving problems that are important to you and that you have personal experience with.
Yeah. Well, and I love that because, and we're out of time, but I think for me, and I hope what everybody else takes away from this is, a lot of times people say, like voting. It's like, well, is my one vote, does that really make a difference? Well, it does. And this is telling people, take those little steps because it will have a big impact.
Yeah,
So just, yeah, that's amazing. Well,
absolutely.
Nikki, thank you so much for being on and sharing your story. And I'm happy that your children are okay.
They are.
Sad that they had to go through that experience, but out of that, you're helping other people. So just thank you and all those blessings. But thank you so much. And we'll look forward to the book coming out. Can't wait for it.
Yay, thank you so much for having me on, Robyn. I appreciate you and your team.
Absolutely. Thank you.